The courtroom was packed to capacity. The press, jury members, and the public. Every single eye was locked onto the defendant, Jamal Harris. The 30-year-old black man sat in the defendant's chair, his wrists still bound in cuffs. He took a deep breath. Never in his life had he needed to prove his innocence. But now, his freedom could be ripped away in just a matter of minutes. The prosecutor stepped up to the podium, pacing towards the jury with calculated confidence.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have irrefutable evidence.
I'm innocent. I didn't do anything that night, I swear.
Oh, really? Then why were your fingerprints found on the murder weapon?
A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Jury members exchanged glances.
Your Honor, the security footage placing my client at the mansion that night is incomplete and misleading.
Counselor Johnson, if you are trying to stall this trial, I suggest you reconsider.
Maya narrowed her eyes. Something was off. And the most terrifying possibility? Had the court already made up its mind? The courtroom was engulfed in a tense silence. Everything seemed too perfect, maybe a little too perfect. A media frenzy had already branded Jamal Harris guilty. TV broadcasts, newspapers, social media, everyone had already condemned him. But Maya Johnson sensed something was missing. This case was too clean. As Maya prepared Jamal's defense, she rewatched the security footage. The prosecutor had insisted the footage was indisputable, but Maya caught something. Someone else entered the mansion moments before the murder. But who? And why didn't they appear in any of the recordings? Maya took a deep breath, shot up from her chair, and clutched the case files tightly. Today, she was going to expose someone's lie.
Tell me, prosecutor, do security cameras always show the full truth? What if something was deliberately left out?
The prosecutor straightened slightly in his seat. He wasn't sure where this was going.
And what exactly would that be, Ms. Johnson? The cameras are clear. The only person inside the mansion that night was your client, Jamal Harris.
Are you sure about that? Then explain this.
Maya lifted a thick file from the table, flipping through the pages swiftly.
The mansion's entrance was opened twice during the time of the murder, but we've only been told that Jamal was inside? So, who was the second person?
A wave of whispers spread through the courtroom. The jury members leaned in, intrigued. The reporters scribbled furiously. Maya's claim had rattled everyone. Judge Holloway furrowed his brows. Things were slipping out of control, and he needed to rein them in.
Ms. Johnson, we don't have time for speculation in this courtroom. If you have evidence, present it now.
Maya lowered her head slightly and smirked.
This is not speculation, Your Honor. This is the truth. If Jamal was the only one inside that night, how do you explain that second entry?
The prosecutor exhaled deeply. He couldn't ignore this anymore.
And what exactly are you implying? That Jamal left and came back?
I wish that were the case, prosecutor, but the security logs prove Jamal never left.
The courtroom fell into an eerie silence. This changed everything. The prosecutor narrowed his eyes, processing the information. If Maya was right, then someone else had been in that mansion on the night of the murder. But who? And why were they still missing? The tension in the courtroom was so thick, it was almost suffocating. The prosecutor shuffled through his files. Judge Holloway laced his fingers together, deep in thought.
Ms. Johnson, if you claim this person exists, you are required to bring them before this court. Do you know who this missing witness is?
Maya hesitated for a second. Even she didn't have that answer.
Not yet, Your Honor, but wherever they are, we will find them, because this trial needs them for justice to be served.
The jury members were on the edge of their seats. The prosecutor eyed Maya skeptically. Did this witness really exist, or was this just a desperate lawyer trying to save her client? Judge Holloway scowled and made his decision.
This court will recess for 48 hours to allow for the presentation of new evidence regarding this so-called missing witness. Ms. Johnson, if this person does exist, you have until then to bring them in.
Maya inhaled deeply, nodding.
Understood, Your Honor.
This case had now become a race against time. Maya had 48 hours. If she failed to find this missing witness, Jamal would be convicted and sentenced to life in prison. But Maya knew, deep down, someone wanted this witness to stay silent. And before she could find them, they might already be gone. The atmosphere in the courtroom was suffocating. The tension climbed with every passing second. Jamal Harris's entire future now depended on a single piece of evidence that Maya Johnson held in her hands. Maya took a deep breath. This moment would either save her client or condemn him to a life sentence for a crime he didn't commit. The audio recording she had could change everything, but the real question was, would the judge allow it to be played in court? All eyes were on Maya as she stepped forward. The jury leaned in. The prosecutor furrowed his brows, and even the judge looked slightly intrigued. Finally, Maya took her place at the podium, her voice strong and unwavering.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are all here for one reason, the truth. But today I ask you, are we truly witnessing the truth, or are we being shown a carefully constructed illusion? I have undeniable proof that my client is innocent, and this evidence clearly reveals that someone else was inside the mansion the night of the murder.
The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Reporters scribbled furiously. The jury exchanged puzzled glances, and tension crackled in the air. The prosecutor stood up abruptly, his face twisted in frustration.
This is outrageous, Your Honor. We don't even know how this recording was obtained. Who recorded it? When? Under what conditions? And now, Ms. Johnson expects us to take this at face value.
Maya narrowed her eyes, sensing the panic beneath the prosecutor's hostility.
Does the truth bother you, prosecutor? Or do you prefer seeing an innocent man convicted?
The prosecutor clenched his jaw but said nothing. Deep down, he knew Maya had something substantial. The judge exhaled slowly, adjusting his glasses before leaning forward in his seat. The gavel struck the bench with authority.
If this recording is relevant to this trial, then we must hear it. However, I must confirm its legal validity first.
Maya gave a slight nod. The first victory was secured.
Your Honor, this recording proves beyond doubt that Jamal Harris was not alone that night. And if justice is what we truly seek, then we must listen to it.
The courtroom fell into a hushed silence. Everyone was fixated on the judge, waiting for his ruling. And then, the decision came.
This court will hear the recording.
A small smirk played on Maya's lips. Now, it was time to expose the truth. She pressed play, and the voice that filled the courtroom sent shockwaves through the air.
No, please don't do this. You're going to kill me.
For a moment, no one breathed. The room stood frozen in time. These were the victim's last words before his death. But the most shocking part? It wasn't Jamal's voice.
That's not me.
This is impossible. The recording could have been tampered with. We can't just accept this as evidence.
Maya turned sharply, raising a document in her hand.
Tampered with? I anticipated that excuse, prosecutor. This recording has already been analyzed by an independent forensic expert. And the findings? The voice on this tape does not belong to Jamal Harris.
A wave of silence crashed over the courtroom. And then, chaos erupted. Reporters rushed to capture the moment. Jurors exchanged shocked glances, and the audience murmured in disbelief. The entire trial had just been flipped on its head.
Order in the court. Ms. Johnson, are you suggesting that this recording proves another individual was responsible for this murder?
Maya took a slow step forward, scanning the room.
Not just someone else, Your Honor. The real killer might be sitting in this very courtroom right now.
The energy in the room shifted. People glanced at one another, suddenly unsure who to trust. The jury exchanged nervous glances. Even the prosecutor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. This wasn't just a trial anymore. This had become a hunt. And when the truth finally came out, nothing would ever be the same again. The tension in the courtroom reached its breaking point. The prosecutor, who had once been so confident, now sat frozen in his chair. Everything was falling apart. And Maya Johnson, she had just realized something. The real killer was in this very room. The moment of truth had arrived.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we all heard the recording, we heard the killer's voice, but that voice was not Jamal Harris.
Can you prove who it was, Ms. Johnson?
Maya took a deep breath. She knew that once she revealed this truth, there would be no turning back. She reached for the folder on the table and slammed it down.
Yes, Your Honor, because the person who committed this murder is none other than Robert Langston's business partner, Richard Monroe.
For a second, time stood still. Then, the courtroom exploded into chaos. Reporters scrambled to capture the moment. Jurors exchanged shocked glances, and the audience erupted into whispers. The prosecutor's face went pale. He knew it. The entire case was crumbling, and Richard Monroe, sitting just a few feet away, had nowhere left to run. The truth was finally out. Jamal Harris had been framed. And Richard Monroe, the man who had stood in this courtroom, watching Jamal suffer in silence, was now the real suspect. The jury had heard enough. Everyone held their breath as the judge turned to the foreman.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. We, the jury, find the defendant, Jamal Harris, not guilty.
The room erupted into cheers. Reporters rushed to get their headlines. Jamal let out a breath he didn't even realize he had been holding, and the audience clapped and cheered. Jamal turned to Maya, his eyes glistening.
Thank you for believing in me.
Maya gave a small, knowing smile, but deep down, she knew true justice had only just begun.